Hi, I'm Larson Halleck. This is an uncategorized rant. Americans are fucking fat. Why is this the case? Why have so many billions of people become obese in only the last 30 years or so? And yes, I say billions because if you look at global trends, America just barely cracks the top 10 in obesity, and that's unsettling. In this video, I would like to analyze what I think is the turning point for when Americans started to become obese, and hopefully shine some light on the rest of the world as well. It is a common progressive talking point, arguably the cornerstone of progressive thought, that everything in the past was worse than it is now. But I can safely say that, at least in terms of average body mass index, things in the past were better. And yes, BMI is a legitimate measure of obesity for approximately 90% of humanity, no matter what fat women say. The average American man in 1960 weighed about 160 pounds. The average American woman then was a slim and trim 120 pounds with a 28-inch waist. Nowadays, the average American woman is 160 pounds, and the average man much heavier than that. What happened? Studies seem to indicate that the sudden spike in obesity only started around 1980. But I want to ask, is there a specific X factor that caused it to happen? The mainstream writers always seem to argue that increased availability and affordability of food combined with intense marketing explains excess energy intake and weight gain amongst different populations. But frankly, that argument always seemed a little flimsy to me. I don't think there's any more food advertising now than there was back in the 60s. If anything, you would imagine advertising to cause more harm in a day and age when cigarettes could be legally advertised on cartoon shows.
The Flintstones has been brought to you by Winston, America's best-selling, best-tasting filter cigarette. It tastes good like a cigarette should.
And that's clearly not the case. One of the studies I read for this video was Shapiro's study from Brown University, and the section that I liked best is when he discusses how, contra the unrealistic body standards make women anorexic propaganda that we hear from feminists, the occasions of that disorder occurring are extremely low, and we do not find a significant increase in the amount of people that are dangerously underweight. Just to clarify, undoubtedly some people are driven to anorexia by these unrealistic body images, but not as many as you would think. Speaking of throwing shade in the face of fatties, the study's medical research team, most medical doctors, and certified personal trainers like myself all agree that the single biggest cause of weight gain is not genetics or anything like that. It is simply the consumption of more calories than you expend with physical effort. Ultimately, all of the studies I read for this video refer to the big two causes of the obesity epidemic: a nationwide decrease in physical activity and a nationwide increase in caloric consumption. But again, we have to ask, why are these happening? In other words, even if there is junk food and corn syrup flying through the sky and cramming itself into people's mouths, why are people choosing to eat it instead of good, nutritious food? If I may, I have a few theories as to why the country has decided en masse to eat shitty food and not exercise. Number one, the reason that people are eating more shitty food is because food has, on average, gotten shittier, with increased food additives, processing, and a lack of regulation. Agricultural business corporations have, in the last 30 years or so, been given free rein to load up their food with as many preservatives, soy products, and high fructose corn syrup as they possibly can. Because hey, it won't kill anybody, and more importantly, it saves them a shitload of money. Soy and preservatives have been linked to many health disorders, and high fructose corn syrup's insidiousness is due to its ubiquity rather than its inherent unhealthiness. It is not inherently unhealthier than sugar, but it gets added in artificially to a lot more things. Chances are, if you look at a fat person's diet, it will have a lot of those things. Observe this jar of potted meat food product. If you buy something that has to clarify that it is in fact food, you probably don't want to eat that. Number two, increased poverty and stagnant wages. I'm very surprised as to how rarely people bring this up. It is often remarked that the USA is one of the few countries in the history of the planet where the poor people are fat and the wealthy people are slim. It is also a common talking point that American wages have basically stagnated since the 1970s in terms of real purchasing power, while prices have readily increased. Why does nobody connect these two things? Compare the prices of healthy food to unhealthy food. While I have argued and practiced the idea that it's not difficult to pinch pennies and get healthy food for yourself even on a barely above poverty salary, let's also bear in mind that most people are pretty goddamn stupid, and thus they don't know this. If all you're looking for is enough food to get you through the day, and all you have is $20, you can buy a lot more junk food with $20 than you can buying good food. Along with the destruction of the American economy, forcing people to live paycheck to paycheck, there is also, number three, Destruction of the American family. The American family is clearly in a state of disrepair. Many, not all, but many children of single parents grow up and become dysfunctional adults. Therefore, I've always felt that it's not too much of a stretch to assume that most dysfunctional families will not either feed the children proper food or get them involved in physical activities. No, not every single mother is like this, just some of them. And number 4, the decline of American culture and community. Due to a variety of reasons, Americans feel that they don't have a sense of shared culture and community anymore. When the streets aren't safe and grocery stores are closed down due to rampant criminality, which is the actual cause of the alleged food deserts that nice liberal white people complain about sometimes, you're going to see an increase in obesity and lack of physical activity. Count on it. So it seems to me that there isn't one single factor or turning point that made America just decide, let's be fat. Rather, it was many factors happening simultaneously with each other that seemed to cause it. Do I have a solution? Well, if I did, I wouldn't be here now, would I? If I had a solution, I would be a very wealthy man. Sadly, I don't have a solution beyond giving me a really big megaphone and putting every fat person in America in an auditorium for me to yell at for 3 hours. I'm Larson Halleck. Keep on training, especially with this information. And now, a word from our sponsors. Hello, are you a fan of Larson Halleck and the Barbaric Gentleman? Of course you are, otherwise you wouldn't be watching. Would you like to help the channel grow? Would you like to help me out? If so, here's how you can. You can go to patreon.com/LarsonHalleck and join the ranks of these illustrious heroes. You can also go to www.paypal.me/LarsonHalleck to also donate some money. You can also buy my book. The Patreon, the PayPal, and the link to my book are all found in the video description. You can also follow me on Twitter or on Instagram. I no longer advertise my Gab because Gab sucks. Otherwise, enjoy, keep watching the videos, and spread the word.